one of the grand missions that the world community entrusts to the United Nations Development Programme and the Global Environment Facility is to support the neighboring countries' efforts to jointly manage the transboundary water systems. This film is about Lake Baikal, the biggest lake in the world. We are traveling to the east, to the central parts of the largest country in the modern world. Russia is waiting for us in the very heart of the boundless land called Siberia. Baikal without boundaries. After 5 hours of our flight from Moscow, we are finally catching up with the dawn, and Lake Baikal is appearing in the rays of the rising sun. The crew of Atlas of Culture, a Russian scientific documentary project, is arriving in Ulan-Ude, the capital city of the Republic of Buryatia. With its historical name of Verkhne Udinsk, the city was founded by Cossacks in 1666 on the right bank of the Selenga River. More than 3 centuries have passed, and today Ulan-Ude is a big industrial and cultural center. This is where we start. We are a filmmaking expedition organized by the Global Environment Facility and the United Nations Development Programme. Our work is supported by the Russian and Mongolian governments, the Russian Geographical Society, the Lake Baikal Protection Fund, and the National Scientific Centers. Our goal is to show what Lake Baikal and its basin look like and what they consist of. Our questions are as follows. What makes Lake Baikal? Which lands and territories does the giant lake collect the world's purest water from? How could it happen that right in the middle of the Eurasian continent there appeared a real sea of fresh water? It is extremely important that people, not only those living in Russia, realize how much fresh water means to our future and our life, as well as to the economy of any country. In particular, it was mentioned at the last economic forum in Davos that one of the major threats man is about to face in 25 or 30 years would be deficiency in fresh water. No doubt, this is a task for everyone who understands what fresh water means, what fresh water courses are, what lakes are, especially for Russia, which possesses the second largest freshwater resources in the world after Brazil, to never forget about it and to make every possible effort to preserve the natural heritage, which belongs not only to Russia, but to the entire world.
Это наше достояние, причем не только российское, мировое достояние.
Water is the cradle of life. The bodies of both man and all known biological species are composed of nearly 80% water. Looking at those impressive water spaces, we may think our water supply is limitless, but the reality proves quite the contrary. The total amount of water on our planet is 1,386 million cubic kilometers. If we put together all fresh and salt water of the planet, it would make a sphere of that size. And only 3% of this amount is fresh water derived from rivers, lakes, groundwater, or locked in glaciers. Having access to fresh drinking water has been affirmed as an essential precondition for our civilization. According to the United Nations, there are serious deficiencies in access to drinking water in the majority of the countries in the modern world. there are only 50,000 cubic kilometers of accessible fresh water for the over 7 billion people living on the planet. And Lake Baikal contains as much as 1/5 of that amount. The peculiar thing about the basin of Lake Baikal is that it straddles the territories of two countries, Russia and Mongolia. The Global Environment Facility initiates and finances various projects to preserve the biodiversity and ensure integrated management of the transboundary water resources. The Baikal project supports the efforts of the two countries. The task is to keep the unique ecosystem viable and minimize the threats to the quality of the water in the conditions of the intensive development of the two national economies. In collaboration with Russian and Mongolian scientists, the specialists of the United Nations Development Programme have performed a transboundary analysis and revealed the potential threats to the water basin, which are the deterioration of the conditions of the local flora and fauna, dropping of the water levels in the rivers, and pollution of the water. This crystal clear water, sparkling in the summer sunlight, starts its long way to Lake Baikal in the vast open lands of this amazing country. These landscapes are striking. You might imagine that by some magical means you have found yourself on a distant, unknown planet. In Mongolia, modern urbanism is seen in a harmonic combination with the traditional, centuries-old nomadic way of life. Numerous flocks of sheep, goats, yaks, horses and camels are grazing throughout the year in those boundless steppes. All the way along our journey, we met visible evidence of the ancient Mongolian culture. The Adane-Zuru Buddhist monastery appeared where the first capital of the Mongolian Empire used to be. In the 13th century, the city of Kakarin was built there under the order of Genghis Khan. In the Middle Ages, it was the center of the great empire of the Genghisids, the city of the world supremacy and authority. Not far from Ulaanbaatar, the present-day capital of the country, scenes of that period of history have been reconstructed in an ethnographical park. In Mongolia, only 22 kilometers away from the Russian border, we find Lake Kupsagol. This highland lake is a part of the Baikal Rift Zone, and it is the geological brother of Lake Baikal. With the age of over 2 million years, it is one of the 7 oldest lakes on the planet. This lake contains 75% of the surface fresh water of the country. Lake Kupsagol resembles Lake Baikal not only in the clarity and purity of the water, but also in the landscapes. Lake Baikal has the island of Alkan, and on Lake Kupsagol we find a similar island called Delai Hue. The two islands are believed to be sacred places by both nations. There is a Mongolian legend saying that a fountain of water once started gushing out from the ground and quickly flooded the entire valley. And there appeared an epic hero who lifted a huge boulder and made a shield against the water flow. The rock barrier became the island of Delai Hue, and the water that passed through it turned into Lake Kupsagol. 96 mountain rivers fill Lake Kupsagol with their waters. Some of them flow under the ground. It is hard to believe, but one day all that water will come to Lake Baikal. The Egin-Gol River originates from this picturesque lake. Together with the Delgemaran and Ida rivers, it gives birth to the most important river in the basin of Lake Baikal. Right from this valley, situated in the Khangai Mountains, starts the Selenga, the biggest river in Mongolia.
Монгол орн бол бас 70 төгснөөс өндөр оршдог.
Mongolia is situated quite above the sea level. Way back from the ancient times, the Mongolians divided their land into two geographical zones, Gobi and Khangai. The Selenga River flows through the Khangai region. This is the dearest part of the country, as these lands are the best and the most comfortable for living. The Selenga Basin covers a vast area of over 400,000 square kilometers, comprising up to 50% of the water flowing into Lake Baikal. Thus, without its rich and fast-running waters, the level of Lake Baikal would drop by half, and the Angara, which is the only river that outflows from the lake, would simply dry up, killing the unique flora and fauna of the region. The Selenga and other rivers and lakes in Mongolia and Russia form Lake Baikal in the way we know it today. The Selenga River not only brings water to Lake Baikal, but also ensures the water quality of the lake. Over the course of millions of years, a peculiar ecosystem formed in the delta of the river, which helps the lake preserve the unique qualities of fresh water. The area occupied by the Selenga Delta is simply striking, 680 square kilometers. An intricate pattern of channels and small creeks, resembling a complex system of blood vessels, acts as a giant and reliable filter for various suspended matters which the incoming water is rich in. The Global Environment Facility pays special attention to the Selenga River. They have initiated a collaborative program for the water quality monitoring and are modeling the process of the polluting substances traveling in the waters of the river.
Мы показали, что, вообще говоря, Селенга задерживает очень много веществ, в том числе.
We have shown that the Selenga acts as a sort of filter and prevents lots of various substances, including pollutants, from reaching Lake Baikal. That means the Selenga is the filter that we use for our drinking water, and the delta of the river performs an extremely important filtering and purifying function for the entire basin of the Selenga.
Барьерную функцию для всего практически селенгинского бассейна.
The delta of the Selenga River is on the list of the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands of International Importance, and Lake Baikal has been deemed a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Under the initiative of the Russian Geographical Society and in collaboration with the Lake Baikal Protection Fund, specialists are carrying out geophysical researches with the help of light aircrafts. This project represents a follow-up of the Mir Subs on Baikal scientific research expedition when the lake was started using deep diving vehicles, which provided a lot of unique information on the condition of the Baikal ecosystem. We have organized several expeditions. More than 7 countries participated in the Mir Subs on Baikal expedition project, which lasted for 3 years. Today we are performing the research expedition called Trans-Eurasian Flight Leman-Baikal, with the participation of 3 countries, Russia, Switzerland and France. So it gives us a rich collaborative research experience. We have explored the bottom of Lake Baikal, under the water surface, and obtained unique data telling us how the lake was born, what kinds of living creatures can be found there, and what processes can be observed. And today, with the help of hang gliders, within the framework of the expedition carried out by 2 countries, Switzerland and Russia, we are going to watch Lake Baikal from the lower atmosphere. The Selenga River is really a unique place. The delta is 25 million years old, and the height of the alluviums is 8 kilometers, which makes the place unique in every single meaning of the word. This is a clue to the secret of the formation of the paleoclimate and the natural landscapes of the area and the unique rift system of Lake Baikal.
Природных ландшафтов, к тому, как образовалась вот наша уникальная рифтовая система озера Байкал.
To minimize the harmful effect produced on the ecosystem, the Baikal project of the United Nations Development Programme provides assistance to the countries to develop a joint strategic program for the activities aimed at improving the efficiency of the international collaboration. There are certain steps taken to modernize the current law and water protection policy, which represents a contributing factor for attracting investments required for the stable functioning of the water ecosystems. The Baikal region is by no means a calm or peaceful place. On the contrary, this is a severe and potentially dangerous spot on the planet. The trench under the lake is the central link of an extensive seismic area. Every year, there are 8 to 12,000 earthquakes of various strengths registered here. The delta of the Selenga River still has traces of the large-scale natural calamity that took place as a result of the earthquake in winter 1861. In only 24 hours, a part of the steppe in the Tsagan region, as large as 230 square kilometers, went down to the bottom. The people who lived there managed to save themselves, but all their belongings and cattle were lost. There formed a creek, and the people gave it a name that speaks for itself: the Gap. Most lakes on our planet are no more than 15,000 years old, so Lake Baikal is believed to be the world's oldest lake. Scientists think that it is 25 or 30 million years old. It was formed inside the largest mountain hollow on the planet as a result of the tectonic divergence of the Eurasian plate and the Siberian platform from the west, and the Amurian plate from the east. The lake is 636 kilometers long, with a maximum width of 80 kilometers and depth of 1,637 meters. The giant lake was built by the water basins of the rivers flowing into it. This process never stopped over the course of millions of years. It takes the water in the lake at least 3 centuries to get completely renewed. This water is nearly distilled, for the content of mineral salts in it is extremely low. All the way from the surface to the very bottom of the lake, it is highly rich in oxygen and has a very low organic impurity. The Baikal water shows high transparency test results, much higher than in most lakes of the world. As the oldest lake in the world, Lake Baikal boasts a fascinating biological environment, which disappeared from the rest of the planet long ago. 75% of the species of the local flora and fauna are endemic, which means they cannot be found anywhere else in the world. When I was a child, Mom used to tell me, "This is your river, this is your forest, this is your field, and this is your meadow." And today, when we say our Baikal, I always emphasize it. Every person on the planet should think of it as "this is my Baikal." Then everything is going to be all right with Lake Baikal for another 25 million years. When we meet our friends from Mongolia, we discuss all together our common problems, and we always mention that we drink water from the same river and that we all live on the Baikal shore. We cannot divide the nature.
Тухайн голынхаа савгацрыг л одоо бид нар ерөөсөө хайрлан хамгаалж түүнийг ирээдүйд айл болохоор
We must love and protect the basins of the rivers and preserve them for the future. Of course, we have to use them, since water is the main economic and social factor, and it has to be used. But we must be very good protectors. This is the sort of responsibility that the nature requires from all the people living in river basins. So let's live together and let's be jointly responsible. Let's love and protect that amazing creation of Mother Nature, our Lake Baikal.
хамтдаа одоо нэгэ хайрлан хамгаалахад цуг одоо амьдарцгаах хэрэгтэй л гэж одоо хэлмээр байна.
The Russian and Mongolian governments have established nature reserves in the vast territory of the basin of Lake Baikal in an effort to preserve the original appearance of the natural environment. Under the initiative of the UNDP Baikal project, the Baikal Information Center was established to keep the local people informed of the state of the water basin. The center supports programs for ecological tourism and education in the nature reserves and national parks.
Нам исторически повезло, что мы родились, выросли сегодня.
We appear historically lucky to have been born, to have grown up, and to be now carrying out our scientific studies on the shores of the water body that contains 1 out of every 5 liters of the purest water on our planet. Our major task is to monitor the present-day conditions of the water resources in the Baikal Basin, to keep everyone well informed of the state our World Heritage Site is in, and to provide recommendations on what should be done to preserve it for the future generations.
Внукам вот это достояние человечества.
We are proceeding into Zabaikalsky National Park. We are going to spend a few days in the picturesque valley of the Bargazin River. There are 336 rivers that flow into Lake Baikal, and the Bargazin is one of the biggest rivers in the Baikal Basin. The wide and absolutely flat valley stretches out between the Bargazin and Ikat mountain ranges. Its length exceeds 200 kilometers. The valley is rich in history, serving as the focal point of numerous notable events and beautiful legends. This land is sparsely populated, with almost no roads. Many of the tributaries dry up in summer, but still there are several rivers that remain in full flow all year round, providing the Bargazin with their waters. The atmosphere of these places makes you feel calm, and you plunge peacefully deep inside yourself and your own thoughts. Under the slopes of the high mountain range, not far from the rural locality of Kurumkan, we find a secluded Buddhist temple complex. The Republic of Buryatia is one of the world centers of Buddhism. In the 18th century, the great world religion came to these lands. In 1741, the Russian Empress Elizabeth I, the daughter of Peter the Great, issued a decree on recognizing the Tibetan Buddhism in Russia. In Ulan-Ude, the capital city of Buryatia, the expeditionists had the luck to visit the residence of the Kambo Lama, the head of Ivolgensky Datsan, the best-known Buddhist temple in the region. Here we can see pilgrims from every corner of Buryatia and other parts of Russia, and from all over the world as well. Starting from the 18th century, there are the so-called Old Believers living in Transbaikalia. They represent a bright and ancient branch of the Russian people. Following the decree issued by Catherine the Great, more than 40,000 people were forced to move from the European part of the country to the remote and severe Siberia in order to strengthen the eastern borders of the Russian Empire. They settled there with their whole families, so they were nicknamed the family people. The Russian Old Believers community brought agricultural and handicraft technologies to these lands. For centuries, they had been preserving their peculiar communal lifestyle and original culture. The Holy Nose is the largest peninsula on Lake Baikal. In the Buryat language, it is called Kilmen Kushin, which means sturgeon's snout. Our boat is leaving Chiverkuy Bay. We will have to go around the peninsula and sail into Lake Baikal, where we will see the Ushkan Islands. On our way, we can see small islands and find numerous rookeries of birds on them. We are passing round a cape and entering the open sea, the sea called Baikal. The temperature of the outside water drops down to only 5 degrees centigrade. The air is getting very cold and a heavy fog is rising over the water. We are approaching the Ushkan Islands. The archipelago consists of the peaks of the underwater academic range. The islands are notable for the rookeries of the Baikal seal, one of the widely known symbols of the lake. Using some special camouflage, we are watching those timid and extremely wary animals. To see them is a fine piece of luck. We are leaving the islands, charmed with their original and rugged beauty. Our research vessel is passing round the cape called the lower head of the bed and sailing into the mouth of the Bargazin River. As the morning sunlight reaches the wooded mounds, the expedition comes to the borders of the Baikal Biosphere Reserve. There is a special project implemented at this scientific site, which gives visitors an opportunity to see the diverse landscape zones typical for the nature of the Baikal region. A wide large alley is going throughout the territory. Crossing the forest reserve, the route leads to a full-flowing mountain river and then goes on across those picturesque wetlands. Organizing such routes gives the opportunity to get into contact with the wild nature and at the same time ensure the inviolability of the protected area by localizing the human presence. We are leaving the nature reserve, and a few hours later we are approaching our next destination. Buryatia has been left behind, and now we are in Irkutsk Oblast. We are going to see the northern shore of the Great Lake. Irkutsk is the 5th largest city in Siberia and a big center of science and modern industry. The fast-running Angara River divides the city in 2 parts. Just like many other cities of the region, this one was also founded by Cossacks. The first settlement of the Yenisei Cossacks dates back to 1620, and in 1661 there appeared the first fortifications. For a few centuries, the city had been the center of the entire eastern Siberia. It had a booming economy based on the international trade with China and gold mining. Thanks to its architectural forms and European style, Irkutsk earned the nickname of the Paris of the East or the Petersburg of Siberia. We could not help wishing to get here since the very first days we came to the Mongolian steppes and the Russian Siberia. We are going to Alkan, the largest and the only inhabited island on Lake Baikal. Our hours-long journey by car from Irkutsk to the east ended up in the village of Sakyota, situated on the very edge of the shore of Lake Baikal. The expedition cars have climbed on the ferry. The narrow strait between the Irkutsk shore and the island of Alkan is called the Small Sea. The eastern side of the island faces the main water area of Lake Baikal. After a while, we are driving along the roads in the steppe zone of the island. In spite of its continental and undoubtedly severe climate, Alkan is a sunny spot on the map of Siberia. There are only 48 days in a year when the sun hides behind the clouds. And it was just one of those days when we came there. All the water area of the small sea was covered by an unending heavy shower. The island is covered with a halo of beautiful myths and mysterious legends. The Buryats consider it an absolutely sacred place and a physical embodiment of the immense and undivided divine power. Not far from the urban locality of Kuzhia, we find the Shamanka, or Shaman's Rock, one of the major sacred places of the entire Asia. And the intricate silhouette of this cape is considered one of the symbols of Lake Baikal. According to the legend, the cave of Shaman's Rock used to be the home of Aegin, the lord of Alkan. The monumental ensemble of the high wooden poles standing in a row forms the Buakan, the place for adoration of spirits. The party-colored silk ribbons are left by pilgrims coming here from all around the world. Standing on the shore and peering into the bewitching panorama of Baikal, we thought of how few places there are in the world which can capture your mind in an instant and get imprinted on your memory for the rest of your life. After those 3 unforgettable days on Alkan, we are leaving this amazing island. The Alkan Gate ferry is taking us back to the big land. Our journey to Lake Baikal has come to an end. At school, we were all taught the universal law of gravitation. Just imagine, 20% of all the fresh water in the world, absolutely pure distilled water, is concentrated in one place, and man, being only a small grain of this world, with the body consisting of 85% water, there must be some sort of mutual attraction and purification, which science has not yet explained. Baikal gives you strength, it purifies you of evil thoughts and fills you with positive emotional energy. So I believe that everyone has to visit Baikal at least once in a lifetime to be able to feel it.
Знаете, когда мы говорим о Байкале,
Speaking about Lake Baikal, we should certainly understand our role in preserving it. And we have to make every effort required in all aspects, both scientifically and administratively. But I would like to say that we should not forget about the people living around Lake Baikal. For Baikal is not only water or fish, it is a large territory, the Baikal region, which functions as a single unit. So we cannot speak of the lake in isolation from the surrounding lands, which consist of all the river basins situated there. And it is not just a physical structure created by the nature, as it also involves the people living on those lands.
землей, но это и люди, которые живут на ней.
Mungkin shingi mungkhate, orega undernerte, ayorgis sukhate, yabhatne bond.
Redulden Burhan bakşıda Murgaye. Esişinge ervehe.
"800 years ago, these lands were the heart of the great empire of Genghis Khan. The world-famous commander threatened to kill anyone who would dare to cause harm to the lake or the rivers flowing into it. In present days, this vast land of Mongolian steppe and Russian Siberia is home to people representing many different countries and nations, who live in peace and harmony. Altogether, they form a fascinating diversity of ancient traditions, great religions, and unique spiritual practices. Lake Baikal is right in the heart of that bright kaleidoscope of cultures. Being universally loved and revered. Its name sounds similar in the Yakut, Buryat, Mongolian, and even Chinese languages. It is believed to mean the Reaches or the Rich Lake. This unique natural phenomenon is a real treasure, not only for Russia and Mongolia, but for the entire mankind as well. The local people understand perfectly well the level of responsibility they have for the present and future of Lake Baikal. They call Lake Baikal the sea, and they treat it as the embodiment of sacredness. The basin of Lake Baikal is shared between two countries. So its future depends on the joint efforts of both Russia and Mongolia. Time will tell whether we will be able to preserve its natural state and whether its waters will remain the standard of purity not only for the next few years, but for the more distant future as well. Baikal without boundaries.